So there's a lot of tension behind the scenes within the David investigation between the LAPD, the medical examiner's office, and the media. There's been a lot of misinformation out there, and I've been trying my best to keep you guys up to date on this investigation. And it seems like my video has reached some people who are working behind the scenes. And in particular, there's an anonymous source who has seen Celeste's remains who's come to me and wanted to clear the air on some of the information floating around. Now, I want to keep this source anonymous because I feel I'm honored that they did come to me, and I want to respect this. And after doing some vetting, I do believe that this person has been around Celeste's remains and does have some of the details that we're missing. Remember, TMZ claims they have their own source within the medical examiner's office, and I do not believe that we're speaking to the same person because they have information that contradicts what TMZ is saying.
Very well-connected source connected to the medical examiner, the LA County medical examiner, and they doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and sextupled down that the body was found in a partially frozen state.
This is graphic because we've got some of those disturbing details to go through, so let's talk about it. So Celeste's remains arrived at the medical examiner's office in 3 garbage bags. One bag had her legs, one bag had her torso, cut above mid-thigh. Another bag had her head and her arms. This already contradicts what some of the reporting says, that Celeste was not decapitated. My source is saying 3 bags. We've got the legs in one, torso, and the head and arms in another, which would mean that she was decapitated. But there is an LAPD captain who was quoted saying that her body was partially dismembered but not decapitated. So again, that's something that's being misreported that my source wanted the world to know. My source wanted to focus on the cuts in particular. I mean, we know that Celeste was dismembered, decapitated, cut down at the neck and to the mid-thigh. Multiple different cut marks were visible on the bones. Some looked like they may have come from a hand saw that was not very effective. Other markings looked like an electric tool. Our source claims that they saw evidence of at least 3 different tools being used. It kind of goes along with what Steve said at one point, that there were farm tools. Investigator Steve, sorry, I feel like we're so used to talking about him, but he's been on this case, and he says that there were farm tools discovered at the home that was in Los Angeles. So maybe those are the same tools that our EM saw that were used on this body.
Searched the home and that he found, and look, does this mean anything? Does it not? That's the question. But he found, he claims, basically heavy machinery and farm equipment, equipment that you could use to potentially get rid of a body. So he says these things were found.
This is a portion of my conversation with our source. I will redact it in portions throughout the video to protect their identity, but I wanted to go through the cutting aspect. They're saying that the fact that there were multiple tools used is a reason why David is not maybe the sole suspect. It seems like other people had their turn, helping out with him. I don't know. It's so disturbing. They write the amount of force it takes to cut a body in the way that you can determine the force by the teeth marks from, let's say, a saw. If I tried cutting her and it took 20 times to get her leg off, it may not take you, another person, to 20 times to do the same because you may be stronger than this person is. So there's inconsistent cut marks from more than one tool, which makes it possible to have more than one suspect. They also say it looks like whoever was supposed to finish the job never did and left her the way she was found rather than actually disposing of her body. Forensic technology uses teeth marks from something like a saw to estimate the force that was used, which I guess the way that her body was chopped shows that there was different levels of force being used. Because of the cut patterns and the force appearing inconsistent, they think that there's more than one person involved. Now let's talk about the frozen aspect. So our source claims that the only time Celeste was ever frozen was when she was being placed in the crypt. The crypt is at the medical examiner's office. It's where they put the body as they're going through testing it and reviewing it so it stays as fresh as possible. According to our source, they don't believe Celeste was frozen or ever frozen. They also described Celeste's remains as soupy or waterlogged, which shows extreme decomposition. Remember, TMZ has been adamant that their source within this investigation believes that she was frozen. TMZ reported that we're told the body parts were partially frozen and had been thawing out sitting in David's trunk. In another report, they write that it appeared the body had been frozen somewhere and was thawing out. But the LAPD captain who's running this said on the LAPD side that the body was never frozen. TMZ has doubled down, saying they have a very connected source within the medical examiner's office that does say that she was frozen. Here is the LAPD statement. They released this on November 21st, where they stated the body was, again, not frozen. So there's this back and forth. And I don't know what's going on here. Harvey suspects that maybe his source at the medical examiner's office is right, and there's some issues within the LAPD and the ME's office, and they can't decide what the facts are. But either way, our source claims that their team, the people there, do not believe the body was ever frozen, which does lead you to question, where was her body? Because they do believe that she was dead for months and months. So where did they store her? They said the decomposition was so advanced they could not visually tell if she had been strangled or otherwise assaulted. They claimed the smell was overwhelming, much stronger than the usual case, which lines up with how the Tesla was discovered because of that odor. Another interesting piece of information we learned was that Celeste's body reportedly could not be identified through fingerprints, which makes sense. She was waterlogged. They normally might use something like a toenail for DNA, but in this case, they had to use dental records. Again, I don't think that's been released that they used dental records to identify her. There were reports that said that Celeste had a yellow metal chain bracelet on. This is also something I can confirm that my source said, yes, in fact, in the bag where her head and her arms were, there was the bracelet. Right now, within the office, it seems like the rumors. Now, this is what they're saying. So imagine a workplace and everyone's talking about the case. This is kind of what's going around right now. They believe that this was possibly an overdose. They don't see any gunshot wounds. They can't tell if she was strangled. Toxicology is still going through it. I mean, my source said that they're still working on reports. There will be reports at some point. They don't know what it will reveal, but they kind of feel like the working speculation right now is an overdose, and that's how she would have died. My conversation with the source, it's kind of speculated she OD'd due to no obvious signs of injury, like a gunshot wound. Her body was so bad, you can't even tell she was strangled because her tissues were so thin and sludge. Poor girl, it was awful. Just the smell from her decaying was sad. That is all the information that I've learned from my source. And to give you guys a little bit of insight, I've had several sources within this investigation, people we've spoken about, that I've spoken to. I respect people's anonymity. I do not want to be, I don't want to do anything wrong here. I'm trying my best to verify and to vet everything that I am hearing from people, but there are people who are talking. And if you are out there and you want your information out there, just come to me. Now, of course, we've got a vetting process, so you have to be willing to talk to me, but I do want to talk about the grand jury information. So there's been this secret grand jury meeting where these people are meeting to hear evidence, to hear from witnesses testifying, and to build this case behind the scene that David is the one who did this. Let's talk about what a grand jury means in this case, because they don't immediately hand down a verdict. It's called an investigative grand jury. They hear evidence, subpoena witnesses, and other evidence like videos, records, to help prosecutors decide whether there's enough to charge someone. So it's kind of like a mock jury. Would you guys think this guy's guilty? And that's what they're doing. It looks like the grand jury has been hearing evidence for several days in mid-November. If the grand jury do recommend some charges, it doesn't mean the prosecutors will take what they have to say, but at least they'll feel more confident in pursuing with what evidence they have. Because if this jury convicted him, then the next probably would too. The fact that they called this grand jury means that authorities have evidence, and I'm hopefully feeling confident that David will be in prison by the time Christmas rolls around, because if they're presenting this evidence now, it means that they want to hear out the grand jury, hear what they have to say, and if they say, lock him up, then the police will be right up on him. But at the same time, I don't know if they have enough to go and convict him. So I am thankful to everyone who's trying to get all of the information out and trying to keep it straight. I'm really trying to put out what is real, what I can come across, and this case is something I'm heavily invested in, and I know you guys are too. So thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Bye, guys.